Even if you've never thought about talking to yourself, you've been having this dialogue throughout your life. From early childhood, when you first learned to formulate thoughts, to this very day, your inner voice accompanies every action, decision, or emotion you experience. This isn't just random phrases. It's a continuous stream of reflections, evaluations, doubts, and hopes that shape your perception of the world. Whether it's encouraging words before an important event or criticism after a failure, this inner monologue becomes an integral part of your personality. This phenomenon is not your individual trait, but a universal experience shared by all humans since humanity mastered speech. The thoughts you verbalize to yourself, the questions you ask in difficult moments, and even fleeting remarks are all manifestations of your inner voice. It helps you analyze the past, plan the future, and make sense of the present. Without it, our consciousness would be fragmented, and our perception of reality would be incomplete. Thus, this quiet yet constant dialogue with yourself is not just a habit, but a fundamental mechanism of thinking. Talking to yourself can take various forms. Sometimes it's spoken aloud, but more often, it remains a quiet inner monologue. At times, you are fully aware of this dialogue, such as when you ponder an important decision or encourage yourself before a challenging task. However, most often, it occurs at a subconscious level. Fleeting thoughts, casually tossed evaluations, or automatic reactions to events. This inner conversation helps you navigate the world, evaluate your actions, and even shape your self-image. Your inner dialogue is a mirror of yourself. Perception. When you reflect on who you are, what you feel, and how you act, your inner voice becomes a direct reflection of yourself. Esteem. If this voice is kind, it strengthens your confidence. If the criticism becomes too harsh, it can erode your self-belief. Thus, how you talk to yourself affects not only your mood but your entire life. Recognizing this process is the first step toward making this dialogue more mindful and supportive. Every day, we ask ourselves questions that define our attitude toward ourselves and life. Am I smart or not? Am I lucky in life? Do I have opportunities? Or am I cornered? Am I attractive? Am I talented? These thoughts, whether conscious or subconscious, shape the inner dialogue that influences our motivation, decisions, and even destiny. Sometimes this voice supports us. You can do it, but it can also devalue. You won't succeed. It's important to remember, how we talk to ourselves doesn't just reflect our reality, it creates it. The truth is that none of these questions have absolute answers. Intelligence is not a fixed quantity, but a flexible tool that develops. Luck often depends on how we perceive events. Opportunities always exist. It's just that not everyone notices them. Beauty and talent are subjective concepts that change over time and circumstances. Your inner monologue can be either a cage or a springboard. It all depends on whether you learn to hear it, analyze it, and, if necessary, gently change its tone to a more kind and fair one. Indeed, our inner dialogue can be both a source of strength and a cause of self-limitation. If we constantly tell ourselves, "I can't do it," our subconscious takes it as a guideline and blocks our opportunities. Conversely, thoughts like "I can do it" or "I deserve success" trigger a chain of positive changes. Every statement we repeat in our thoughts, aloud or silently, gradually becomes a belief. That's why it's crucial to consciously choose the words we direct toward ourselves. The secret is to start talking to yourself now as if you have already become who you dream of being. Your subconscious doesn't distinguish fantasy from reality. It reacts to emotionally charged statements. Want to become more confident? Say, "I am confident." Want to develop your talent? Affirm, "I am talented and improve my skills every day." Even if these words initially seem unconvincing, over time, they will change your mindset. After all, a person is not just what they think about themselves, but also what they regularly tell themselves. Your subconscious is a faithful executor that doesn't analyze, but simply follows your inner commands. It doesn't distinguish between good and bad, doesn't argue or doubt. Its task is to follow the instructions you embed in it. Every thought, every repeated statement becomes a guideline for action, shaping your reality. This seems surprisingly simple, but the complexity lies in this simplicity. Many people don't believe that their inner dialogue has such power and continue to feed themselves limiting beliefs. Imagine having the wisest, kindest, and most supportive interlocutor, yourself. When you learn to talk to yourself as you would to your best friend, without judgment, with patience and belief in your abilities, your life will begin to change. At this moment, real magic happens. You stop fighting yourself and start cooperating. Your thoughts become clearer, your decisions more conscious, and your inner voice your main ally. This is the secret of transformation. Not waiting for external changes, but creating them from within, step by step, rewriting the script of your life. Talking to oneself is not just an attempt to convince oneself that everything is fine, but a means of honest and deep self-analysis. While positive thinking can be beneficial, if it turns into self-deception that ignores real problems, it becomes not a solution, but a new trap. The truth is that everyone has difficulties, fears, and failures, and these cannot simply be masked with false optimism. It is much more important to learn to engage in an inner dialogue that does not deny difficulties, but helps to recognize and overcome them. This means not running away from unpleasant thoughts, but addressing them, not being afraid to ask oneself tough questions, and seeking answers. Only in this way can one not only accept one's weaknesses, but also turn them into growth points. True strength lies not in ignoring problems, but in facing them and taking action, even when it is difficult. This kind of conversation with oneself becomes the foundation for real change. Talking to oneself is not a way to avoid reality, but a tool for its transformation. When we engage in a conscious inner dialogue, we do not close our eyes to problems, but create a space for their resolution. Many mistakenly wait for difficulties to resolve themselves, but this never happens. However, by thinking through a situation, analyzing it from different angles, we often find solutions that we did not notice before. It's like a preventive check. Up with a doctor. It's better to detect a threat in advance than to deal with the consequences. This kind of dialogue is an investment in one's future. When we honestly ask ourselves, what exactly is going wrong? Why? How can I change it? We do not just state facts, but initiate a process of change. We begin to see patterns, notice our recurring mistakes, and most importantly, find ways to correct them. This is the power of self-reflection. It does not promise instant solutions, but provides something more valuable: clarity, understanding, and control over one's own life. However, such a conversation with oneself must be conducted consciously. This means not just mechanically repeating familiar patterns in one's mind, but truly listening, asking meaningful questions, and honestly answering them. When we stop being passive observers of our inner monologue and start consciously directing its flow, it turns into a powerful tool for personal growth. For this conversation to be truly useful, it is important to observe without judgment. Notice your thoughts, but do not get stuck in self-criticism. Ask the right questions. Instead of "why do I always mess up?" ask, "what can I change in this situation?" Track emotions. Understand what feelings underlie certain thoughts. When the inner dialogue is conducted in this way, consciously and purposefully, it becomes a kind of mental shower, cleansing toxic attitudes and opening the way to real change. It is not just reflection, but a practice of managing one's own consciousness. There are two fundamentally different types of inner dialogue. The first is directive, involving clear instructions for improving actions. For example, a basketball player before a shot repeats, "Bend your knees," Watch your elbow. This kind of monologue works like an autopilot, automating skills. It is used by athletes, musicians, surgeons, and pilots performing precise actions. Actors also use this to prepare for a stage performance. Talking to oneself helps to control technique, allowing one to concentrate and do what is needed. Phrases from this conversation include a whole cascade of neurological and physiological template processes that are constantly practiced. As a result, a person can enter a zone of efficiency and flow. This form of conversation with oneself also helps to focus on what is happening at the moment, without being distracted by past failures, and without fear of making a mistake. The second type is motivational conversation. It is more profound and analytical in nature, unlike instructive conversation, which is aimed at specific actions. This type of conversation with oneself helps to make sense of life situations, analyze emotions, and make important decisions. It is a powerful tool capable of transforming one's psychological state. It begins with simple but emotionally charged phrases. I can do it. This is my chance. I deserve more. Such inner monologues not only awaken self-respect but also switch doubts to confidence. For example, before an important interview, you can repeat, "My skills are valuable. I am ready for the challenge." This dialogue creates a state of flow, the ideal balance between concentration, motivation, and satisfaction. In this mode, dreams cease to be an abstraction. They turn into clear goals, and every action becomes a step towards their realization. Motivational dialogue also helps to overcome inner resistance, replacing fear with curiosity, and anxiety with a sense of drive necessary to overcome obstacles. The effectiveness of motivational self-talk is due to its ability to activate neural networks responsible for goal setting and emotional control. For example, when an athlete tells themselves before a competition, "I've trained for a year for this moment," they are not just encouraging themselves. They are shifting their focus from potential mistakes to the resources that will help them win. This approach is combined with visualization, imagining success, such as the applause of the audience, or the feeling of pride, enhances the motivational effect. It is important to note that motivational self-talk is not superficial positive thinking, but a conscious practice that requires regularity. Over time, it forms a stable growth mindset. You begin to see difficulties as steps toward development rather than obstacles. This state becomes not just a temporary surge of energy, but a constant companion that helps you live in the rhythm of your own ambitions while feeling in harmony with yourself. Motivational self-talk is not just a way to encourage yourself, but a powerful strategy that can change not only your attitude toward life, but also real results. For example, a person dreaming of a career change can use such dialogue to overcome the fear of failure. Every step is experience. I am learning and growing. In the realm of health, similar phrases act as psychological support. I am getting stronger every day. My body thanks me for taking care of it. Even in the search for a partner, motivational inner dialogue helps strengthen confidence. I attract harmonious relationships. Love begins with self-respect. Such affirmations not only form positive thinking, but also stimulate the actions necessary to achieve goals. However, the success of motivational self-talk depends on two conditions: awareness and a positive attitude. Simply repeating phrases mechanically reduces the effect to zero. It is important to feel each word, connect it with emotions and specific images. For example, when visualizing financial well-being, repeat, I am open to opportunities for prosperity, imagining how confidently you manage resources. It is also useful to combine dialogue with actions. If you want to improve your health, plan walks or a healthy diet at the same time. Telling yourself, Every step I take brings me closer to energy and vigor. Another important aspect is the balance between optimism and reality. Overly grand promises, like everything will be perfect, can lead to disappointment if plans change. It is better to use phrases that emphasize growth. I am ready for any turns because they teach me. Constant practice of such dialogues turns them into a habit that helps not only to achieve goals, but also to find joy in the process of self-improvement.